The Biden administration thought it would be a fantastic idea to launch a war against progressive activists who rallied, canvassed, did what they could to ensure that Biden won over Trump in 2020. And nothing made it clearer than the Washington Post releasing a breathtaking piece indicating that the administration has just had enough with progressive activists. They think that they're out of line, okay? Progressive activists, Biden administration would like you to sit down and stop asking them to do things like, lead the country on issues that they campaigned on. Now, according to this piece in the Washington Post, White House officials defend the urgency of Biden's response and the actions he has taken on abortion, which they argue are in step with mainstream opinion. Quote, the president has been showing his deep outrage as an American and executing his bold plan, which is the product of months of hard work ever since the decision was handed down, end quote, White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield said in a statement Saturday. But she's not done yet. This is what's been getting a lot of attention over the weekend for obvious reasons. She said, quote, Joe Biden's goal in responding to Dobbs is not to satisfy some activists who have been consistently out of step with the mainstream of the Democratic Party. It's to deliver help to women who are in danger and assemble a broad-based coalition to defend a woman's right to choose now, just as he assembled such a coalition to win during the 2020 campaign. So let's actually hear from one of those activists before we go off, okay? You're about to hear from Ashley Allison, who is one of those progressive activists who is not only disappointed with how the Biden administration responded to the stripping of reproductive rights of women in this country, but is disappointed in the way activists like her are now being treated by the Biden administration. Let's watch.
I was disappointed in that statement as an activist. As someone, she nodded to the coalition that Joe Biden built. I ran the coalition's department on that campaign. Guess who was a part of that coalition? Activists. In 2020, when people took to the streets because of the death of George Floyd, it invigorated the base in a way that allowed us to have record turnout. Now, yeah, we were fighting an authoritarian president like Donald Trump, but these people going into the street saying that we need a bodily autonomy, that is the excitement that Democrats need right now ahead of the midterms. And to demonize them and say, they're not mainstream. Well, abortion is a very popular issue in the country and it goes across Democratic and Republican lines. I think it was an unforced error and I hope they address it. I'm not sure they will, but I took offense to it and a lot of people have.
I don't blame her for taking offense to it. I take offense to that kind of statement. Again, especially considering the fact that they're specifically attacking people who did the work, okay? Engaged in the ground game necessary to ensure that Biden won the election, that 2 Democratic senators in Georgia won the runoff elections after the general election in 2020. And now to turn your back on them and say, oh, they're out of line. They're out of step with the mainstream Democratic Party. So what exactly does the mainstream Democratic Party represent? Does it represent this weak, tepid response to something that's as serious as women losing autonomy over their own bodies? Is that what they represent? I mean, what the Democratic Party is saying to its base as we speak is, yeah, this is what we're not gonna do anything for you. And we feel entitled to your vote anyway. So suck it up and stop crying about it. That is essentially what Kate Bedingfield, who's White House Communications Director, is telling Democratic voters right now. Good luck in the midterms. We'll see how it works out for you. Unbelievable.
So they live in an alternate reality. And so I'm done trying to convince them they're hopeless. The Democratic leadership and everyone who works for them, and most of the reporters in DC, live in a bubble. You can't break the bubble. They'll forever believe things that are absolutely nonsensical. So really, people who are mad about Roe being overturned are not in the mainstream in the Democratic Party, then who the hell's in the mainstream in the Democratic Party? And in their opinion, it's just donors. Donors are the only people who are mainstream in the Democratic Party. You're a woman who's upset, you're a man who's upset about Roe being overturned. Now all of a sudden you're not mainstream Democrat. If you don't agree that Democratic leadership should always do absolutely nothing, apparently you're not in the mainstream of Democrats. And by the way, in Washington, that's actually very true. And by the way, how can you tell? One of 1,000 ways that you can tell is go on my Twitter account And the minute I say, hey, would you guys like to do something? You'll see all the people that live in DC going, how dare you? The Democratic Party obviously can never do anything. We must always surrender, and you demanding to actually do something is outrageous. So in Washington, that's considered totally normal. I know for the rest of you, you're thinking, that can't be, they're really that crazy? No, they aren't, they're totally nuts. And how do I know I'm right and they're wrong? Because everybody's got their own bubble, right? The polling. The polling has him at a miserable state right now. Only 26% of Democrats think he should run again. But in their world, they think he's killing it, he's nailing it. And us activists are the ones that are causing the trouble. If we would just accept the fact that the Democrats aren't ever supposed to get anything accomplished, then we would know our role and everybody would be happy.
No, it's amazing. So they accuse us, by the way, us specifically, because we're critical in a justified manner of the Democratic Party and its ineffectiveness, its fecklessness, and its inability to do the bare minimum. They're very upset at us, and they accuse us of being funded by Republicans to take down the Democratic Party. Now understand that our critique of the Democratic Party is that they aid and abet the GOP. That is what our critique is. The fact that they just sit by and allow authoritarians and theocrats in the GOP to do whatever they want, even under the leadership of Democratic lawmakers. How exactly are we empowering Republicans by being critical of Democrats for literally aiding and abetting the Republican Party? Number one. Number two, okay, so you want to be critical of us because we're progressives, and of course we're going to be critical of milquetoast, pathetic Democrats who haven't accomplished a damn thing. But what about the rest of the Democratic electorate? I want to go back to what Cenk mentioned with that poll. Okay, let's go to graphic 8 here. This is a headline from the New York Times. Most Democrats don't want Biden in 2024, new poll shows. With the country gripped by a pervasive sense of pessimism, the president is hemorrhaging support. Well, how much support is he hemorrhaging exactly? 64% of Democratic voters say they would prefer a new standard bearer in the 2024 presidential campaign, something that I've been calling for as well. And this is according to a New York Times Siena College poll, as voters nationwide have soured on his leadership, giving him a meager 33% job approval rating.
So who's mainstream and who isn't? Because I'll tell you, 33% job approval rating is not mainstream. That means you're in the tiny minority that thinks sitting on your ass is awesome, never fighting for your voters is awesome, getting nothing accomplished is awesome. The 2/3 of the country says, no, that's not awesome. We kind of hate that you're doing absolutely nothing. By the way, the New York Times, even in their piece, as whenever they talk to any voter, and voters that had voted for Biden, they're in the quotes, their number one complaint was always, well, he hasn't done anything. Right? But if you say that in Washington, their heads explode. They're like, what do you mean? Look at the speech he gave the other day on abortion. You heard Bedingfield, she called it bold.
What's
bold action? Well, you know what was in it? Literally nothing.
No, it's worse than bold action. She referred to his bold plan.
What plan?
What is his bold plan? The Biden administration didn't expect SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, to reverse Roe on the day it reversed Roe. They were flat-footed. They had no idea. They were convinced that that was not the day they were going to reverse Roe. And by the way, they had 6 weeks from the time that the Supreme Court draft opinion leaked and the time that the Supreme Court finally reversed Roe. They had no plan, zero. And by the way, we're being critical of the Biden administration because of the fact that he had no plan. But let's also not forget, we're talking about the mainstream Democratic Party, and they control Congress right now. Yes, with a slim majority, but even with that slim majority, if Biden was willing to use the bully pulpit, if he was willing to use sticks in addition to the endless carrots he gives the goons in the Senate, like Manchin and Sinema, maybe he could actually move them on the legislative filibuster. I mean, they had a carve out for the filibuster when it came to raising the debt ceiling to ensure that their stock portfolios didn't suffer. But when it comes to your reproductive rights, all of a sudden their hands are tied. Democrats can't do a damn thing, right?
So guys, a bunch of things here. There's a process critique of Biden, and Anna mentioned that, and the New York Times focused on that because they think, oh, you waited too long is a fair critique. Then there's a substantive critique, which is after the 6 weeks, then after another 2 weeks, they came up with a plan that has nothing in it. So the substantive critique is way more important. So Biden announced, well, I am really mad. And they explained in the story that they prepared for 2 more weeks to get him to appear mad. Is he actually mad? No, when he first did his first statement after Roe was overturned, he didn't appear mad at all. So they coached him on how to appear mad, like now pretend you care about women's rights and stuff, and here say these words because that'll. And then of course I can't stand DC reporters. They all were like, oh, good theatrics, good theatrics. Oh, the president seemed more animated today. It's an obvious act. So what was the substance? We're gonna do commissions. And so later, other organizations and groups and cabinet departments are gonna come up with a plan later, and then they're gonna report back on that plan. So that's not a plan, that's a plan to do a plan.
Yeah.
So it had absolutely no substance, zero. So look, every time Democratic ass kissers will come out and say, oh, no, you can't ever do anything. Well, Anna just told you, you can lift the filibuster. In fact, they lifted the filibuster. They lifted it.
For something
specific. For their
specific.
goddamn stock portfolios.
Yep.
They lifted it when it was their money on the line.
Yep.
So they definitely can lift the filibuster. They're choosing not to lift the filibuster. Oh, well, Manchin and Sinema. Well, okay, what has Biden done to fight Manchin and Sinema?
Nothing. He congratulates them. He compliments them publicly.
Today he complimented Sinema again on that BS gun bill that they passed with also nothing in it. Okay, and then you know what else he did today? And they said to this, to Anna's point about, oh, you guys are helping Republicans. He's like, oh, I want to thank my Republican friends. John Cornyn, number 2 Republican in the Senate, terrible, awful, terrible person. Senator Tillis' senator, he kept gushing about his Republican friends. And he's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to get you in trouble, because he loves them so much. At the same time, they attack their own base. You know why? Because they are Republicans.
Yep.
And so when we say they're Republicans, they're like, how dare you help Republicans? Well, if you have cognitive difficulties, there's nothing I can do to help you. You just can't understand something. Get the hell out of the way. Let us fight the Republicans, because we're happy to do it. We can't wait to do it. We do it every single day, and we show you how you could beat them. So if you're gonna be a loser Democrat, like, oh yeah, we should do nothing, I like it. Then get the goddamn out of the way so we can protect women, so we can protect voting rights, so we can actually do the Democratic agenda. If you're gonna be a loser, at least don't brag about it and get the hell out of the way so real people who care actually do something. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.